Hey guys, welcome back to Mom Vibes Podcast. This is Carissa.
And this is Portia.
And we are back for another episode.
Yes.
And we have our friend Julia back once again.
Yay, thanks for having me
Let's
back,
go.
guys.
Yes. Thank you for some great convo last week.
Yes. Awesome conversation. Looking forward to today, too.
It was so good. So this week we are talking about the one and the only most annoying thing in the whole entire world.
Yep.
Mom guilt.
Ugh.
Yes. So we are going to have some good conversation about mom guilt, how it affects us, and some tips and tricks for how we can
Survive.
survive it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, guilt is microphone is a big thing in motherhood. But we're gonna talk about it, right?
Yes, man. Am I first? It's like,
Well, so, I think we can first, for those who, I mean, it's kind of obvious, right?
Like,
The
what is
definition
mom
of
guilt?
mom guilt, right? It's moms who feel guilty
for mommy.
Yep, for
for
momming.
momming. Yeah. And we'll go into detail, but society, it's become a big thing in society, and social media has had a huge influence on it. So, tell us, Julia.
Oh, I'm up first. Okay.
Wow. Portia just said she didn't want to be, so I just crossed the civil. I mean, I could go into it, but what is your in a short little side note, Julia? Do you experience mom guilt?
Yes.
Portia, have you experienced mom guilt?
Yes.
Carissa, yes, I experience it all the time, all the time. So tell us about your personal experiences with mom guilt and how it has affected you in motherhood.
Ooh. It's funny because when you first sent me like this topic and like the idea around this topic, I initially assumed like mom guilt based on like the guilt that other people were like trying to put on me, like society, other moms.
Yeah.
But then I was like, no, I do that all on my own. It's my own guilt. Like I'll do something, but then I'll feel incredibly guilty about it, or I'll not do something and feel incredibly guilty about that too. Mom guilt sucks.
Yeah.
And for me, it is a daily struggle.
Yeah.
I am constantly questioning if I'm doing enough, if I'm doing too much, if I am a good mom, if I'm not a good mom. Lord, you gave me these children.
Yeah.
Now what do I do with them? Am I doing the right thing?
There's no book.
There's no book.
There's
It
no
turns out.
instructions.
Yeah. No, there's no manual that comes with the
No.
children when they get here.
No, it's just like,
You just figure it out.
here's some humans. Make sure they don't die.
Right.
There's only one book, the Bible, but
Yeah.
that's all we got.
It is.
But sometimes that's even hard to understand.
Decipher, I know, really,
Yeah.
And it's hard to apply what we know in the Bible to everyday parenting. It's definitely possible, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It is.
Because in that moment, you're not thinking about, we should. This actually might be a good idea. Like in that moment when you're disciplining or whatever you're doing, we don't think to, let me just go to the Bible and see what the Lord says about this particular thing that's going on. That could be a good idea to actually.
For sure.
That's like I just answered like a later question.
Yeah, you did.
That's fine.
Tip number one.
It's good. Tip 1, go to the Bible because that's what we live by.
Yeah, it is.
What do you think are, mom guilt is so prevalent in society today. And so what do you guys think are some trigger points, right? That cause people to feel that mom guilt? I know.
Comparison crap.
Man.
Comparison.
Like I said whenever.
First episode.
First episode. Who are we?
The second episode is that comparison is a killer.
Yeah.
And I think that's one trigger.
And people are not even living like that. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Whenever you see all this social media stuff, they're not even. That's not even how they live.
even.
Yeah.
They're just putting on a show.
Yeah.
Just so they can hide whatever they're going through.
Yeah,
so it's
true.
like it's not even worth comparing because you're comparing to an illusion.
Ooh, an illusion.
Ooh.
Yeah.
For you listeners, I'm just kind of waving myself,
illusion.
body rolling. Yeah, Julia, what are some triggers for you that have been like, daggone it, here comes the mom guilt.
Definitely comparison, like Portia said. For me, it is a generational thing. Like my mom lives with us, so we are a multi-generational household.
Yeah.
And of course, the way my mom raised me is completely different from the way that I raise my children with my husband.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of disagreements a lot of the times about how we're parenting our kids. One of the biggest things that is, I guess, a hot point in our household is we talk to our kids. You know, and we have no problem apologizing. If we've done something wrong or we've said something that we know we should not have said to the kids, we come back and apologize. My mom was like flabbergasted that we have the audacity
That's
to
like old
speak.
school.
It
You know,
is.
like parents back then, they're like, I'm not saying that. I'm the parent, so
Exactly. Like somehow being a parent makes you perfect. Well, it doesn't. We're humans and we're not doing the right thing all the time. And so, you know, that's one of the hot points in our household is like trying to navigate how we want to parent our kids completely differently than how we were parented. Yes, we lived, we survived, we are, you know,
We
we're
drank
here.
from a hose. Let's go.
Right. We did all those things. We
Got
turned
beat with
out great.
sticks.
Right.
Let's go.
Got beat with a
with
switch from the
belt.
backyard.
Oh,
got
was I the
hit
only
with
one
the
with the belt?
chancla, the
Yes.
belt, whatever was in the vicinity.
And I think we turned out okay.
We turned out just fine.
But what it also leads into is that, you know, as we get older, as we've become parents and we look back on our parenting or on the how our parents parented right, how we got parented, it's you see what you don't want to do. But then you sometimes feel guilty because you fall into how your parents did to you, and then you feel guilty because you know my kids aren't built like I was built.
Right. Yeah.
And
kids
that's
are different
hard.
nowadays.
Yeah. And that's where you're like, dang it, I'm doing it the old school way.
Yep.
But then there's so much like we're trying to be those perfect parents, but you know, my perfect parenting is not going to be the same as y'all's perfect parenting because all our kids are different.
Yeah.
That gentle parenting when they say.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. My kids don't be gentle kidding, so I can't. It's so hard. They're
That's
like,
so
gentle
funny to
parenting
me.
when my kids is off the wall. So
Yeah.
Whew.
But I do feel like social media has ruined a lot, to be honest with you. I mean, we're on social media, right? But I think it's hard because we as parents, we see those people on social media who are like, yes, living the life. I'm going to Bali. Da, 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 da. My kids are coming too. I'm like, who takes their kids to Bali? Nobody.
Right. And
But-
how are you traveling with your kids?
Yeah.
Because like we go to Target and I'm like, wait,
It's hard.
I'm
This
about to
is
lose my
not right.
mind.
Right. Well, and then you have, and so we're looking at them when we're comparing, but then you have those mothers who are maybe being genuinely themselves and like showing everybody how hard it is. But then it's like, do you really have to post that?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Have to
what are
post
we do? Like,
everything.
and that's where social media is a butthole sometimes
Yeah.
because you're like, it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Right. And it's okay. They're sharing their honest, how hard it is, but it's also like, you know, you can also share how great it is.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've yet to see a social media profile or account, and maybe just, you know, if you want to follow me and prove to me where it's balanced.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about motherhood is not like you can't really balance it. Just be
Yeah.
honest. Like it's different for everybody. But I haven't seen like a profile where it's like it's great, but guess what? It's also
It
hard
also
too.
sucks.
It's
Yeah.
There's
follow
no
me
realness.
if you would like to prove me wrong. But so for the three of us, we have all gone through some mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
How has mom guilt affected your mental health?
Yikes.
Ooh, these are just heavy hitting questions. Like
I'm so sorry.
right there.
Welcome to
Wow.
Mom Vibes Podcast.
I feel like I don't know. I just feel like mom guilt. I feel like it made me more anxious because I
yeah.
never had that much anxiety
Yeah.
growing up, and I feel like ever since
We
I
weren't allowed to.
became- right? Ever since I became a parent, it's like, whoa, what is all this? Like, I'm anxious about little things, and it's ridiculous. And I'm just like I'm trying to think about the past, like how did I come from not being anxious? All of a sudden, I'm anxious. Like, you know, like kids
Yeah.
are a blessing, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I try not to think, you know, like my kids are driving me crazy because God gave us these children for
Yeah.
a reason, and they're a blessing. And I just like, I try to flip it, but it's also hard because, you know, the way I was raised, I got whooped all the time. And it's like, you don't want to do that. And then it's like, you don't want to spoil your kid either.
Right.
Because, you know, verse says, the rod, don't forget the rod.
Yeah.
But it's
Rod
like,
spoil
then
the
you don't
child.
want to, I don't know, it's hard. And I feel guilty sometimes for yelling, because then I saw on social media that yelling is more traumatizing than
Mhm.
actually hitting your kid. So it's
Yeah.
like, it's tough.
That is tough. That is. Wait, what was the question?
How has
How's
mom
your
guilt
mental health?
affected your mental health?
Oh yeah. I think I got lost in that because as you were speaking, Portia, it really made me start thinking like, when did I've struggled with anxiety for off and on for probably 25 years or more. But I
Don't worry,
think,
she's only 26.
right.
I'm just
I
kidding.
don't look a day over 26. It did get worse though after I had kids. And I remember when I first found out I was pregnant with my oldest, Leah, I think it was right during the time of Sandy Hook. I think that's when Sandy Hook was happening. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, I'm about to bring this baby in the
Into
world.
all of this.
Yeah. And like there's people out here shooting
And
little
I think
kids.
that happened in my state, Jersey.
It
New
did. It
Jersey,
happened in
yeah.
Jersey. And I just remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to be responsible for keeping this thing alive. Why? Like, why did I decide to do this,
Yeah.
Lord? What am I supposed to do in this situation? And so I agree. My anxiety has been amplified since having children, which is why I'm a huge proponent for therapy. Like,
Yeah.
I stay in therapy. Jesus in therapy every day,
Yes.
all day. I will I will shout that to the cows come home because those are two things that I need in order to do this parenting thing.
Right.
It doesn't always take away the mom guilt, unfortunately.
No.
It's still very much there a lot of the time. But
And so in our household growing up, like talking about your feelings wasn't a thing. Like, what do you mean you love me?
right.
I love you, right? Like
yeah.
I'd see, I think I was probably one, with exception to my other sister, one of the most emotional because I would cry when my siblings got a whooping. And my dad would be like, why are you crying? I don't know. Right. And so, it was very taboo to talk about your feelings, and it kind of is still today when you're talking with your parents, right? Like my parents were never the type to say I love you or anything like that. And so, now let me rewind, nope, fast forward, rewind, whatever. Back, directions and numbers are very hard for me. I first had my real first anxiety attack when I was working at Apple. And y'all been in the Apple store before, right? Where
That's
like everybody and their mom and their uncle
I could not.
drove a bus to go there. And I was working at a setup table and all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. I'm like, what's going on? Am I dying? What is this life? And so I go to the back, and then, a couple weeks later, I actually quit. I had to find another job where I was not around so many people.
Yeah.
By that time, I think I only had two. I had, what are my kids' names? I had Bray and Kay. When is this? I had Bray and Kay, and, new to motherhood, we're just winging it. Let's go. I'm working all the time, full time, and it leads into Terrence and I's decision to let the kids go to grandma's. So they were there during the whole week. That brought up a lot of mom guilt because
Yeah.
I'm like, why can't we afford childcare?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
why do we have to rely on my in-laws to watch our kids? And now my in-laws are going to see them walk for the first time. They're going to potty train them. They're going to do all these things rather than seeing the positive on the other side of like,
Yeah.
no, listen, you don't have to pay for childcare because you have such an amazing relationship and just great in-laws to where they're there to help you support you any type of way. And that, I to this day, I still have mom guilt in regards to that. But if you listen to the Balancing Momhood episode, we talked about it. But I didn't realize, I went to therapy and I didn't realize I actually have had anxiety and depression for over 10 years and didn't realize it. And I think that's what happens in motherhood, is that you don't really realize things until you realize things.
Oh,
like
girl.
you've gone through hell and high water, and you try hard just to continue to stay strong. And because we're moms, we're not allowed to break down. We're not allowed to do all
you don't
this
have
stuff.
time to.
Who has time
Right.
to break down and cry, except for when you're in the shower,
Right.
Yeah.
which is
Or when they go to bed.
when they go to bed, or,
Right.
or when you're watching All American.
That's my show.
That's
Yo,
my show, too. This
done.
past
Side
season,
note,
though,
right, Terrence?
I'm sorry, but this past season was so
it
good.
Listen, I was crying
So
on one
good.
side. Terrence was like this on the other side. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on?
It's so good.
It's so good. Anyways, but you know that mom guilt will hit you, but you don't realize it's hitting you until you honestly become a mom. I feel like when we're not motherless, Lord Jesus, when you're childless, you just like go with the flow. You go do whatever, you hang out, and it doesn't really hit. But when momhood hits, you're now in charge of 3 to 4 kids. You're now in charge of, but I think what we forget as moms is that we actually, you know, us 3 have been blessed enough to have amazing husbands
Yeah.
to be able to balance that. And I think we have maybe I'm just speaking for all of us. We have a hard time trusting our husbands to do it all.
Yeah. The Lord is still working on
Yeah.
me with that.
Yeah.
I am
Me too.
very much like you said last week, Carissa, in the previous episode about having like control issues, or was it you, Portia? Maybe it was both of you.
I think we all spoke on
I
it.
think
Yeah.
I was gonna say I too have control issues around parenting.
Yeah.
Not because I feel like I do it so well and so perfectly, but I just feel this intense desire to like make sure we're doing it right.
Yeah.
Like, and it's hard to kind of release that and relinquish that control a lot of the times. I have an amazing husband who is an incredible dad. That still does not make the mom guilt go away.
Yeah. Nope.
My therapist was telling me I had therapy Wednesday. And so I experienced after, I'm still in my postpartum, so I keep forgetting that. Like I'm literally 2 months postpartum. And postpartum depression is a real thing.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to stay on top of it, and I'm still in therapy. And she asks me, what
She
am I
questioned
doing?
me.
What's your daily routine like? And then she's like, when do you eat? When do you rest? And I'm like, oh yeah, sometimes I don't even eat, but I'm breastfeeding. So it's like,
It drains you.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I had really bad sleep deprivation to the point where I went to the hospital because I felt like I couldn't walk. Felt like I was going to pass out. I had horrible headaches. And it was like 6 days after I gave birth. And they're like, when was the last time you slept? And I'm like, I literally just had a baby. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I really wasn't getting any rest. And they were like, you're sleep deprived. So they had gave me medication for the headaches, and I had some fluids and stuff, and I started feeling better. But my therapist was telling me, maybe you should like pump and let dad feed the baby. That way you're not getting up, you know, throughout the night. But part of me feels like I need to do it. I want to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like my anatomy is here for the baby.
For that
Like
reason,
I'm supposed to feed her. So that's where I'm controlling, like when they're babies, and like I feel like I have to do everything, but it doesn't have to be that way. But it's hard. And then I have mom guilt. It's like mom guilt comes in. Like I also even thought about not breastfeeding.
Right.
But then I think about, I breastfed my other 3, and then I'm gonna be home for a year. Like I should just breastfeed. I'll feel guilty if I don't. So it's crazy.
That's good. And just you saying, you know, speaking about breastfeeding, there's like a whole community of moms out there who will vilify you for thinking about potentially not breastfeeding your baby, which adds to the mom guilt, which is crazy to me. Like we're all in this thing together. We're all just trying to do the best we can. Like why judge a mom for making the best decision for her first and then for her child? Like why are we not supporting that? That's crazy
what my husband tells me. He's like, because I had to go to the hospital a couple of times, and I felt guilty again because like I'm leaving my baby. She's 6 days old, and my boobs are engorged, and I'm just like a mess, and I'm like upset, and I cry, and I'm like I don't want to leave her, just because of some past trauma from leaving my other daughter. And he's just like, if you don't take care of yourself, how are you gonna take care of your kids? And I was like, that's true. We have to take care of ourselves, our mental, to be able to pour into our kids.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Sorry, the lights just flashed.
I was
No,
like,
it's
is it
not
storming?
storming. are we gonna do a power surge? No, that's good. You know, and then just hopping back into comparison, you know, have you guys found yourself more often than not comparing yourself to your friends as
Oh,
moms?
for sure.
You know, and what are some ways? Well, I'll just share my way. You two, I talk to probably like 1,100 times a day, and you know, I'll go into the whole working mom versus what society considers working mom versus stay at home mom, right?
Yeah.
And you know, we all believe, three of us know that a working mom is a stay at home mom.
Yep.
And it's just so crazy how we just get inside our heads, right? This is, and that our minds is the devil's playground.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you say, I just want to work because I want to help provide, but what you don't realize is that you are providing.
Right.
It
Right?
kills me when some people are like, "Oh, you stay at home. What do you do?" It's
Right?
like,
Right.
what?
And then, oh, you
That's
work
crazy
full
to me.
time? Don't you need time with your kids?
Right.
Crazy to
My
me.
kids go to the school that I work at.
Crazy town. But honestly, it brings me back to thinking about my mom, like generationally. My mom's to this day is like, I can't believe you're working a full-time job and you've got all these kids. Like, it's mystifying to her that I've chosen to work outside the home and work in the home too, because let's be honest, it's not like my job somehow mysteriously stops.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to her that I'm choosing to work outside the home to help provide when she thinks and believes that I should be at home, you know, all day, every day.
Did she work full time?
Girl, no. I mean, okay, let me take that back. She did. And then, so my parents are older. My parents had fertility issues. So they had me when they were much, much older, like close to retirement age. And so they had the option to be able to like be home. And so to them, it wasn't a situation of deciding, oh, who's going to stay at home. They were basically home anyway.
Yeah.
So any work that they wanted to do, it's just because they just wanted to work outside the home. And so, but my parents grew up in a generation where the women were staying at home and taking care of the household, and the man was out working outside the home and providing. And so even though that wasn't necessarily her situation, in her mind, she's like, ooh, especially since she sees, you know, I have 3 kids. It was just me in my household. And so that was also different. So she's like, oh my gosh, like, how can your kids need you? Like somehow I can't fulfill their needs, even if I'm working full time.
Right.
That's just,
well, and
really
back in the
crazy.
day, it wasn't like in our last episode, Kingdom Marriage, that wasn't really a thing.
Right.
You know, it was, the man was the head of the household. The women had no say, when in reality, it was just construed differently. Right. And so what I think is really funny is that we all come from different states, different backgrounds, right? Like, so my dad's Polynesian, but both my parents were always working, right? And so, but not to like not in the movies where it's like, my parents are never home, we're always taking care of ourselves. Not like that.
You raised yourself.
You know what I mean? Not at all. My dad definitely whooped me. My mom was like at all of my volleyball games. It was like a normal childhood, but looking back, did my mom have mom guilt? You know, it's crazy. My mom and I have never really talked about that. Like, did you feel bad growing up? Like, did you wish you would have done something else? Like, it's just crazy because as I reflect back on my childhood, my dad taught us like, no, yeah, you're girls, but you're gonna work.
Yeah.
Every Saturday we worked in the yard pulling weeds, right? We like, so it's so different how that affects me today. Like, I would rather Terrence be home than me.
Right.
Because I feel really horrible not working. Because that's not how I was raised. I was raised, no matter what, you work and you hustle.
Yeah.
That's what my dad did. My dad worked nonstop and, I mean, was always there. If he wasn't working, he was working on something at the house. He was fixing up the house. He was fixing up the yard. And so, like, I don't know anything different.
Same.
Except for now, I sit and do absolutely nothing. Sorry, Terrence.
My dad was the same way. And it's funny because that's how my parents raised me. They worked.
Yeah.
Like, even when they didn't have to, they did. And so it's confusing to me that they somehow think that I need to be at home, like barefoot and pregnant. Crazy. Which is something I talk to my therapist about all the time. Because I have that same feeling. It was built in me to work. And so when I'm not working, I'm like, well, this sucks. Even as a teacher during the summer, I told you all the time, like, this is the hardest thing for me because I go from having the schedule, I know what I'm doing, this routine, and now I'm not doing anything. And I feel guilty about that.
I feel guilty about working. I was a stay-at-home mom for like what 6.5
almost
years.
almost 7 years, yeah.
So, and I didn't have any parents. So
Get out.
I had a traumatic childhood, but that's like a long story. But I mean, I had parents, but like my mom was a nurse, so she was never home. And then my dad left when I was a baby, so I literally had my sisters only, and they were like in their 20s, early 20s. Like they didn't know how to be parents,
Right.
but I turned out all right.
Yeah,
but
you did.
I'm just used to being home with the girls. But now when I started working, it was like, all right, I had her and I'm like, let me take a year off. And then it was like, I really want to like still work because I don't know. It was just like getting out of the house. Sometimes being home all the time messes with your mental.
Well, and
especially
like
when you're alone, you feel alone
right.
sometimes.
And I was friends with you when you were in your stay-at-home mom stage. And I think like youth, what is the past tense version of thrive?
Unthrive.
You throve. Like your mentality changed when you went back into work. I feel like you were happier.
Yeah.
Because you were able to separate yourself.
Right.
And you were able to separate yourself from talking to the kids all day versus like now you get to talk to adults. And it was really nice to see you, you know, like we mentioned earlier, Portia and I worked at the same school together, and you know, she was just smiling all the time and not having to necessarily worry about kids, but she had different assignments that she had to work on.
So
Yeah, she was pregnant,
baby.
but it was just nice to see you, not necessarily, I mean, like I guess in a different environment, but you could see yourself grow, and you were just smiling more often, and you just got to make more friends.
I didn't feel overwhelmed. It's weird, like you know how people say they feel overwhelmed working. It was like the opposite. Like I don't know, I felt
it brought you
free.
some peace and freedom. Yeah.
So
That's good.
So what are some tips and tricks that you guys do to free yourself, break free from mom guilt, whether it's only for 5 minutes or like an hour?
Like,
What are some things that you guys do? Nothing.
Still trying to
Yeah.
figure that out.
Yeah.
Actually.
Work in progress.
Yeah, I think one thing for me is being able to vent to you guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Talking about
Is
it
that
helps.
because here's the thing, you guys go, it's easier. Like I could go to Terrence, right? And complain and all this stuff, but he doesn't, not saying that he doesn't understand, but he doesn't understand, right?
Well,
he's
no,
not a
he's
mom.
not a mom.
Yeah.
But he's always willing to listen. But when you are talking to fellow moms who have experienced and are going through it as well, it's a little bit freeing to be able to be like, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
And what's nice about you two is that you will correct me in 2 seconds, right? You'll tell me, you better go pray. You got to pray about it, or give it to God because we can't fix it for you.
Sorry.
You know,
Not
and
sorry.
so it's a work in progress, but you know,
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
I'm like thinking about it.
Me too. I have no idea.
I'm always trying to
I like to
flip
take
perspectives.
baths.
Yeah, I like baths.
I laughed so hard when I heard you say that. I literally laughed out loud.
We're going to make it into a shirt. Yeah, we're going
I
to
like
make
to
it.
take baths.
She's a very clean mom.
You know, I just try to like flip it. I try to look at things from a different perspective a lot, because I feel like that helps me get out of myself. So sometimes I just be like, I try not to make myself feel as bad, or I'll try to be like, I feel guilty not going to work, but I'm home with my baby. There's people who wish they could be home with their baby. So it's a blessing to be able to still breastfeed and be at home. So it's not all so bad. You can always work.
Yeah.
There's always an opportunity to work. And they're not little forever. So I try to do that.
I think what's really good about what you just said, and this is something that my therapist just like maybe a couple weeks ago mentioned to me, is we have a tendency of feeling like we emotion and like everything else is bad. And she was like, no, you need to learn how to hold space for both things. And so what you just said, Portia, like I feel guilty, but I'm thankful that I'm able to stay at home. Like, it's okay to feel both of those things. And I think maybe being able to hold space for both can kind of help with the mom guilt. Like, yeah, I'm not doing everything perfectly, but also I'm doing the best that I can.
Yeah.
I'm showing up. I'm continuing to seek God and ask for wisdom, and I'm continuing to reach out to my community. I'm not doing this alone. Like, parenting is, yes, in your household with your husband, but parenting is also your community too.
Yeah.
Village, yeah.
Yeah, it does. It really takes a village. Like, I know that if my kids come around and they're doing something they're not supposed to do, it's not going to always just be on me. Like, I
Right.
know Terrence will call the kids out in a second if they're doing something.
Girl.
So it's like, I know that it's not going to, the burden's not going to always fall on me
Yeah.
to do the correction and to do the, all the parenting in that situation.
Well, and that's what's great about the village portion of it is that I know how you parent, and if I know how both of y'all, and how your husband's parent, right? And I know that if one of our kids, we all know how each other parents. If one of them acts out of character, we all know when to correct them, and we don't judge because we know nope, it works for their family, or it works for their family. But I think one thing that I try every now and then. So in our workplace, right, we always want feedback because we want to be able to grow and get better at what we're doing. But what I've noticed is that what parents don't do, and this is what I'm trying to do, who are we parenting?
Yeah.
Our kids, right? So why don't we ask our kids how we're doing as parents?
True.
Is, I'll ask Braylon, like, what is something that you want to do more often with mommy? Or what do you want to see more from mommy? Braylon is a little bit older to where he can like express how he's feeling a little bit more. But we're not going to know how good we're doing if we don't ask the people we're parenting.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
and
really
so
good.
even if it's just small conversations, like, what would you like to see more from mommy and daddy? Like, is there something that we need to do better at? And he'll be like, I just want to spend more time.
Yeah.
Cool. I want daddy to play video games with me.
Yeah.
I hate video games.
I love it.
Unless it's unless it's like Mortal Kombat,
Yes.
or Mario Kart, or Super Mario. Like,
I know
yes,
the modern day
please.
video games are just like
It's so hard. Like this Fortnite thing, I can't.
I don't understand it. I don't get it.
I don't get it. You're just getting packages from the sky from llamas.
What do you do?
But and so I think you do this with, and I think Michael does this, where you guys, Terrence done it. Terrence done it. Has done it with Braylon. Is having those, having multiples is hard, guys.
I know.
And being able to evenly love each other is having those one-on-one dates with your kids. And they will be the most honest people in your life and tell you when you're sucking and tell you when you're great. And what's awesome is that they still love you in the end.
Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe the moral of the story is like we have all this mom guilt, but really we're doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Love us
crazy?
I mean, like, I couldn't mom your parents. I couldn't mom your parents.
No, you couldn't.
I couldn't be the mother of your kids because God made me the mother of mine. And so, and there's a connection between that is intentional. And like, I love Leah. I love AJ and Atlas and Aaliyah. I'm naming all the kids.
All the babies.
All 7.
We have 55 kids between the three of us, so let's not go there.
A's.
All 10 of our kids all together.
Yes, all the A's.
All the A. No, you guys are all the A's. I just decided to go on a different road.
Yeah, you did.
But what's nice is that God brought us all together to be able to correct each other. We are not afraid to correct each other and to be able to support each other. So, like, that's what you most need as a mom when it comes to mom guilt. One is that community and that accountability.
Yeah.
Because we can get into our feelings, and what happens with mom guilt, the biggest thing that totally sucks is when we start to isolate.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
girl.
And all three of us are so good at it.
Yeah.
I used to do
I'm a
that
pro.
a lot back then.
Basically a pro.
And so, like, if I don't hear from either of you for a
Homebody.
certain amount of time, there's something wrong or there's something bothering you.
Yep.
I'm the type of person I'll get really, 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 really busy. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I got busy. So what had happened was, and you both know, how's it going?
I look at your location, you're still home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right?
listen.
I might be a stalker, but
Yes, they all have my location
They
and vice
know.
versa, and they know, like, okay, where's she at, or why haven't they
husband's like,
left yet?
"That's
Or
weird."
it's not
I know,
weird.
my
Why y'all
husband says
have
the
your
same thing.
location?
My husband said the same
Terrence,
thing.
do you think it's weird that we have each other's locations? He's used to my weirdness.
yay.
Well, and
I was
My
like,
husband
"What?"
thinks
a
it's
big
very
thing
strange.
was for me before I met you was Portia was traveling to Jersey and driving up and down to Jersey, and I'm like, nope, you need to share your location. I need to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
And then when you went to Virginia, I was like, give me your
Or
location.
you'll see when I'm in the hospital.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, "Why are you at Duke?"
well, when she was pregnant, it was like a month before you went into labor, and I saw that she was at Duke Hospital. I was like, oh no, what are you doing? She was like, I'm just there for a checkup. And I'm like, okay, just want to make sure. So, am I controlling over my friends? Is this
the topic?
what's
of another
going on?
episode?
Mom control.
I think it's just more of like, you guys mean so much to me to the point
Yeah.
where I need to know where you're at. I mean, I'm your mom. I guess I'm your
Okay,
mom.
that sounds a little
It sounds
crazy.
weird.
Like
It
a
does sound
little
crazy
crazy.
now. All right, exit left. But I think it's just I want to make sure you guys are
That's how
okay.
you love.
That's how
Yeah.
I love, is making sure, okay, cool. And then, are you going to be here? Are you going to be on time
Yep.
for work? Are you going to be on time for this doctor's appointment?
No.
It's my birthday.
I'm
It's my birthday. Are you on the way?
Yeah.
But what last insights do you guys have any moms listening who need help with mom guilt?
Ooh. Okay. So I realized, because I do not have it all together, Jesus does. No, we don't have it all together. Surprise. Surprise.
Ta-da!
And so I just needed to find some scripture, because
Yeah.
that's life. That's
Yeah.
real life. Like when I'm stressed, overwhelmed, feeling like the worst mom ever,
Yeah.
all the guilt, just everything, I refer to what the word says about me. And so the one that really stuck out to me is Romans 8:1.
Yo, Romans be everywhere though.
Paul-
Roman.
My boy Paul, though.
Hold on one second before
Come
you go
on,
into
Paul.
that scripture. Can I tell you that I think it was 2 years ago, the Lord has, like, every time I saw something, it was Romans, 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 Romans. And then we went into, at church,
Oh,
we
the
went into
series?
Romans.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang,
Yeah.
Romans is life. Okay, go
That's
ahead.
because it's Paul, man.
Yeah.
Paul,
P money.
Paul got all not P money.
P money.
P money in the Romans though.
It's like a group. It's like a rap
Oh,
group. Oh,
da da da.
But yeah, Romans 8:1. There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And to me, what that scripture means is, like, right now in this moment, as you're sitting with your guilt, as you're feeling all your feelings, as you're going through what you're going through, where you're sitting right now, there's no guilt. There is no shame. None of that exists, because you are a new creature in Christ.
Yeah,
And so as you're feeling all of those things, feel them,
yeah,
but also recognize that in this moment, there is no guilt, there is no
Yeah.
weight, there is no shame, because you are in Christ Jesus. And because you are his, you then take on his weight,
yeah.
which is light, which is easy. That's literally the only,
That's the only
that's
thing.
it.
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
and
And just because you feel them doesn't mean you have to stay there. So,
Right.
right, and that's what I
Were you
about to say.
that?
That's what you be saying. is it's okay? Like you were saying, it's okay to sit there, but know that you cannot sit there forever.
yeah, you can't be
Like, you
there
cannot
forever.
sit in that valley forever. It is
do
it
it.
is important that you move on and you learn from whatever just happened, and you keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
And it's like, and what's cool is that in the beginning, I was saying how, man, it's hard, right? You gave us this responsibility to be a parent to these people, these people, these kids, right? But I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And what's really, really nice is that as moms, as dads, our kids will see the mom guilt. They'll sense it, but we also get the opportunity to show them how to adjust, how to come back from that. And I think it's important that we teach our kids on how to bounce back. Like KK, be flipping out. Woo, that kid flips out if, like, video games, if he's losing, he's very competitive. And, was it last night or 2 nights ago, he was going crazy, like kicked his ankle on the bed, like a hot mess express, right? And I had the opportunity to be like, it's okay. I held him, and I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. You can just calm down, take a deep breath. This is not for a long time. We're going to take a little break from video games, but it is okay to feel your feelings. And, it's okay to have that mom guilt for 2 seconds,
Yep.
but you do not get to stay there.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yep.
Isn't that funny how you're like teaching your kids the same thing that you are like trying to
Works for
practice?
you.
Trying to figure yourself.
Yeah.
Let's just use our kids.
Right. Exactly. You're like parenting yourself.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yep. But well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me
You're-
yet again.
Listen, you're welcome to come back anytime you want to. If you need a therapy session with us,
Yep,
like
I'm pretty sure.
But we are so thankful for everybody and for continuing to follow us and listen to us, and don't forget to hang out with us on the Instagram.
I was about to say like, comment, subscribe.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Well, like to.
Like, what is it? Thumbs up, comment, subscribe,
Hit that bell.
Hit that bell.
Hit the
Hit that
bell,
notification bell.
notifications. But feel free to share our podcast with your friends, your mom friends, hey, your dad friends even too. In the near future, we actually will be connecting with single moms and even some dads down the road. So keep following us, keep listening. We'll see you again soon. No, hold on, time out. We will chat soon. I do this every time
We'll
because
see
we
you
have
soon.
video and then
All the
but
things.
bye.
Bye.